Under a heavy sky, the Clark family gathered around their Thanksgiving table, a stark contrast to the chaos that reigned outside. Their home, once a sanctuary of love, now felt like a fragile shell amidst a world teetering on the brink of collapse. The table was set with care, the traditional turkey and trimmings laid out meticulously, a ritual of normalcy in an increasingly abnormal world. Each family member wore a mask of strained composure, their eyes betraying a deep, unspoken sorrow. As they took their seats, the distant sounds of rioting and the occasional roar of military planes overhead seeped through the walls, a grim soundtrack to their solemn feast. The family exchanged weary glances, each lost in their own thoughts, the weight of unshed tears hanging heavily in the air. The meal progressed in an eerie silence, punctuated only by the clinking of cutlery and the distant, muffled chaos outside. The familiar flavors of Thanksgiving, once a source of comfort, now tasted bland and hollow in their mouths. Grandma Helen, her face lined with the wisdom and weariness of her years, attempted to kindle conversation, reminiscing about past Thanksgivings. Her voice, usually strong and vibrant, now sounded frail and distant. Her stories, meant to inspire nostalgia, only deepened the sense of loss and despair. Outside, the sounds of the world unraveling grew more intense. The riots were closer now, the desperation and fear of the masses manifesting in a cacophony of anger and destruction. The rumble of planes became a near-constant thunder, a stark reminder of the military's futile efforts to maintain order. The family ate mechanically, their movements robotic, as if they were actors in a play that had long since lost its meaning. Each bite was an act of defiance against the inevitable, a feeble attempt to cling to the last vestiges of their humanity in a world that had descended into madness. The youngest, little Sarah, clutched her teddy bear tightly, her eyes wide and uncomprehending. She sensed the fear and despair that hung over the table, her innocence a stark contrast to the reality that enveloped them. As the meal drew to a close, the family sat in a heavy silence, their hearts burdened by a grief too profound for words. The world outside was falling apart, its final hours marked by the sounds of chaos and despair. In the final moments, as the clock ticked towards midnight, the father, John, mustered the strength to speak. His voice, breaking with emotion, carried the weight of their collective dread.
"They say it's all ending tonight,"
he whispered, the finality of his words echoing through the room. The revelation hung in the air, stark and irrevocable. The Clark family, sitting around their Thanksgiving table, faced the end of the world not with hysteria, but with a quiet acceptance, united in their love for one another in their final hours. With shaky breath, John says,
"We give thanks for..."
The Harringtons, a close-knit family, gathered in their ancestral home nestled in the heart of New England, where generations had celebrated Thanksgiving with warmth and unity. This year, the air was charged with anticipation as they prepared to feast on a grand turkey, a family tradition. As the golden autumn sun set, casting long shadows through the windows, the family sat down at the ornate dining table. The turkey, roasted to perfection, was the centerpiece, surrounded by an array of traditional dishes. Little did they know, hidden within the succulent meat lay a sinister secret, a parasitic worm, an unseen menace from the depths of the wild forest where the bird had been caught. The first bite was met with compliments and contented sighs, but soon an eerie pall fell over the gathering. Those who had indulged in the turkey began to feel unwell, their skin taking on a ghastly pallor, their eyes clouding over with a distant, hungry gaze. As the night wore on, the infected family members' behavior turned macabre. Conversations were abandoned mid-sentence, replaced by a deep, unsettling silence. Uncle George, always the life of the party, now sat motionless, his gaze fixed on nothingness, while young Sarah, her vibrant spirit dimmed, moved with a slow, haunting grace. The true horror revealed itself when Grandpa Henry, the patriarch of the family, suddenly convulsed and fell to the floor, his body writhing unnaturally. Within moments, he rose again, but the kind, gentle man was gone, replaced by a monstrous entity driven by an insatiable hunger. Panic erupted as the transformed family members, one by one, succumbed to the parasitic worm's influence, their humanity slipping away. The house, once filled with the laughter and joy of Thanksgiving, became a nightmarish landscape of terror. The few uninfected, led by the eldest daughter, Emily, fought desperately to fend off their once loved ones, now grotesque shadows of their former selves. The home became a battleground, each room a scene of heart-wrenching horror as they struggled against the relentless tide of their zombified family. As the night reached its darkest hour, Emily realized the grim truth. There was no escape, no cure for the affliction that had befallen her family. With a heart heavy with despair and resolve, she made the ultimate sacrifice. Gathering the last of her strength, she lured the infected to the basement, locking them in with her. The house fell silent, save for the muffled sounds of the damned below. Outside, the first light of dawn touched the frost-covered ground, the tranquility of the morning a stark contrast to the horror that lay within the walls of the Harrington home. The Thanksgiving feast, intended as a celebration of togetherness, had become a tragic tale of loss and terror. The Harrington family, once a vibrant tapestry of life and love, was no more, their legacy ending in a feast of the damned. In the days that followed, the house stood silent, a monument to the horror that had transpired. The tale of the Harringtons' last Thanksgiving became a whispered legend, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk within the most innocent of traditions. In the small, picturesque town of Cedar Grove, Evelyn Harper was known for her elaborate Thanksgiving dinners, a tradition she upheld with pride and joy. This year, as she navigated the bustling aisles of the local grocery store, she felt a sense of triumph in securing the last grand turkey, oblivious to the simmering anger of a stranger who had eyed the same prize. The man, a reclusive figure with piercing eyes, watched in silent fury as Evelyn cheerfully placed the turkey in her cart. With a muttered incantation under his breath, he cast a dark, vengeful curse upon her and the bird. Evelyn returned home, unaware of the malignant shadow that now lingered over her. As she prepared for Thanksgiving, odd disturbances began to unsettle the cozy ambiance of her home. Objects moved on their own, cold drafts swept through closed rooms, and an unexplained sense of dread hung in the air. On Thanksgiving Day, as her family gathered around the table, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation for the feast. However, as Evelyn carved into the turkey, a sense of unease crept over her, a whispering intuition that something was terribly wrong. The first sign of the curse revealed itself in subtle horrors. The gravy turned sour, the vegetables wilted, and the stuffing seemed to writhe with an unseen life of its own. The family, initially dismissive of these oddities, soon became engulfed in a growing sense of panic as the true nature of the curse unfolded. Evelyn's brother, who had taken the first bite of the turkey, began to cough violently, his eyes clouding over with a haunted, distant look. One by one, those who had eaten the turkey fell victim to the curse, their cheerful demeanors replaced by a ghostly pallor and a vacant stare. The house itself seemed to turn against them, doors slamming shut, trapping the family inside, and the once warm fireplace flickering with menacing shadows. Evelyn, realizing the gravity of their plight, remembered the man in the grocery store, his angry gaze, and the muttered words she had dismissed as mere grumbling. As night fell, the family, now prisoners in their own home, struggled against the growing power of the curse. The air was filled with whispers, and the walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. In a desperate attempt to break the curse, Evelyn gathered her family in the living room, urging them to focus on their love and gratitude, the very essence of Thanksgiving. They joined hands, reciting old family blessings, hoping to counteract the dark magic that ensnared them. But the curse was too strong, the man's vengeance too deeply woven into its fabric. The house groaned and creaked as if alive, the air thick with the scent of decay. The family, once vibrant and full of life, now sat in silence, their eyes empty, lost to the curse's malevolent embrace. Evelyn, the last to succumb, whispered a final prayer as the darkness closed in, her spirit joining those of her loved ones, forever trapped in a Thanksgiving that had turned into an eternal nightmare. The next morning, the Harper home stood silent, a somber monument to the power of curses and the dangers of unseen envy.